Hello, everybody. All right. Who's ready to get started? Yes, yes. You guys are excited? Oh, look who's there in the back. You gotta be on everything. So, when I was here last time, how many weeks ago was it that we had this class?
2 weeks.
About 3 weeks ago? Sounds about right. What was the last thing we talked about? That's correct. So here's the thing, people. We have a lot of things to talk about today. Right there on the objective. Today we're going to cover Moses, which is like not a good idea because Moses did like a bunch of stuff, right? So it's very hard to get it covered in one day, but we're going to do our best. We're going to, you know, but that means we all got to focus. We got to kind of like hold it in and power through, right? Can you guys do that? Yes? You sure? All right, let's get started. So just a little review for those who's like the first day here. First day. Oh my gosh. All right. Sad. Who else? Because we don't really care. All right. So a quick review. Quick review. All right. God created this world, didn't He? He did. We talked about this. We talked about this in great detail. If you don't know that, then you're in the wrong class. Then Adam and Eve were created. Adam and Eve, they don't follow the rules. What happens to them? This is stuff you guys should know. They get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Absolutely. But like, people are still not waking up, right? Like, they're still not getting to keep messing up. So God decides to cleanse the world. How does He do that? Through the flood. Noah comes, 8 people get in the ark, people are saved, a new generation comes. Do people learn their lesson? No, they keep falling. Instead, God finds one person who's good enough. And who's that person? Abraham. So close. Abraham, right? Abraham, and then his name gets changed to Abraham. He's the chosen man. He's the guy who's like who's worthy, right? Finally, God is like, I found somebody, right? So Abraham, and I'm not going to get into it. God chooses him. He has things happen, family drama, things. And then, but God recognized who? His child? Isaac. Isaac is chosen. Isaac has kids. Crazy things happen. And then who's recognized? Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. What are they known as? 3 patriarchs. You guys should know that. Whenever you hear the 3 patriarchs, we're talking about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. This is very fundamental stuff. Fundamental. We talked about the difference between Isaac and Ishmael and like what Ishmael did and all that. And then we talked about, you know, Esau versus Jacob and the descendants of Esau and what they look like and all that. We talked about that. So we're not going to go back into that. Then we ended up with Joseph. Joseph is not the most popular kid in the household, right? Like, people don't really like him. They don't really mess with him. Stuff happens, and he finds himself in Egypt, right? And this is kind of where we left off the story. Joseph is in Egypt. He ends up being the second most powerful person in Egypt. Crazy how things work out, right? So here's Joseph. Joseph is a what? Egyptian? What is he? He's a Hebrew, or he's an Israelite. Remember, like now they're being called Israelites. That's what we're going to refer to them. How did we get their name Israelites? From Jacob. Absolutely. You guys see how it fits? You guys see how it works? Yes, yes, no, no. So now, here's Joseph, the son of Jacob, whose name is now Israel, finds himself in Egypt. They're in Egypt. Now, here's the thing. When they're in Egypt, Joseph's a good guy. He brings his brothers over. Everybody gets into Egypt. They're living in life. Now, this is before internet, before TV. They don't have a lot of things to do. So they decide to make happy time. They decide to make happy time. All right? And multiply like rabbits. It's crazy. The Israelites are very busy. All right? Like, shalom, right? So, like, they're busy. Like, it's crazy. So, like, they have kids, like, beyond belief, right? Fast forward, Joseph, the brothers, all of them, like, they're all dead, and new generation is coming. The king at the time who promoted Joseph is dead. They call him the Pharaoh. And then like, so these like pharaohs keep coming in and out. Eventually, like the Israelites are in Egypt and they outnumber the Egyptians. Not only do they outnumber them, like they're organized. So they, like the Pharaoh is like, whoa, this is kind of serious. Like, we can't just have all these people just growing out of nowhere. Exodus chapter 1, verse 7. But their descendants, the Israelites, had many children and grandchildren. Code word for they were busy. In fact, they multiplied so greatly that they became extremely powerful and filled the land. So, like after a few years or a few generations, Pharaoh, one of the kings, is like, yo, like what's happening on our land? Like these foreigners are coming and taking over our land. I sound like Trump, but I swear that's not what I'm doing. Correct? Sorry, we gotta edit that out. We can't. So like what are you doing? Like all these foreigners, all these people that don't belong in this land are suddenly coming here and they're multiplying like crazy. And they seem happy all the time. We don't know what the cause is. So like, so out of nowhere, they got to be like, the Pharaoh's like, we got to come up with a plan. We can't let this stuff go, right? So what's the Pharaoh doing? He's insecure. He's like fearful, right? He's scared, right? So he's scared. Now that the fear is justified. He has a reason to be justified. His land is being taken over by foreigners, people that don't belong there. So what does he do? He's scared, he's insecure, so he tries to deal with the problems by focusing on the foreigners. And what he does is, he gets to see, he tries to make sure that the Israelites are slaves. He gets them to build these like huge, what are they called? Monuments and statues called Ramses, and I forget the other names, and like, they're huge, not just the pyramids, but even like statues, right? So like, if we get them to be slaves, they won't have no more time to, you know. So like, he comes up with this plan. Surely this is gonna fix it. But the Israelites, they don't play no games, right? They keep growing. They keep growing. And then the Pharaoh's like, yo, what's happening? And eventually, he sets out this decree that says in Exodus chapter 1, verse 16, if the baby is a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live. So he decides to kill all the children of the Israelites to ensure that their number doesn't grow. Here's the problem. The Pharaoh is insecure. He's scared. His fear is justified. Like, there's nothing wrong. Sometimes, like, our insecurities, like when we're insecure about something, there's justified and unjustified fear, right? Sometimes it's just in our head, right? I always say, like, if you don't know if your insecurity is justified or not, make fun of yourself and see how people respond, right? Like, I used to be insecure about my ears. I thought I had big ears. People were like, yo, you heard that? You know I heard you with my big ears. And like, nobody would laugh, like, you know, I was like, okay, I guess it's not true. Then I was, you know, insecure about other things. And people were like, you're trying to grab lunch. I was like, you know I never skip a lunch. And people, ha 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 ha. So that's a justified insecurity. Now here's the thing. When you're insecure about something, when you're, stop laughing, you laugh a little too. That's how I know it's a justified insecurity. So like, if you're insecure about something, just like the Pharaoh was, the solution is not on the foreigners. That's what Pharaoh's doing. He's insecure, but he's insecure about his country. The solution is found within. Insecurity, you find the solution within, not on the foreigners, not on the things that don't belong there. If you are insecure about something and it's justified, take a hard look at the mirror and see how you can fix yourself within. Don't blame the outside stuff that you have no control over, but look within and ask yourself, what can I change about myself to make sure that I'm secure? That was the problem with the Pharaoh. Pharaoh felt insecure, scared about his nation. He didn't feel secure. That's why we call it insecurity. He didn't feel secure about his land. Instead of focusing on within to make sure that his country is strong, to make sure that his nation is like very solid that nobody could, take over it. He focused on the foreigners. I fear that we do the same thing. When we are insecure, we start blaming people that have nothing to do with the foreigners, the things that don't belong with us, right? Like, if you're getting a bad grade, stop blaming your teacher and start studying more, right? If you're insecure about your relationship and if it keeps happening, ask yourself what you're doing to attract the wrong type of people. Stop being insecure about the type of relationship that you have and start asking yourself, what am I doing to find myself in this situation every single time? Insecurity is solved within, not by the foreigners. So here's the decree. The decree is out. Now all the children have to be killed. Huge. Like, this is sad. This is a sad moment in history. Imagine all the mothers. Like, when I read the Bible, I don't want to just skim through it. I want to take the time to really digest this thing and really, like, look at it from that perspective. So imagine the mothers. I mean, like, what kind of agony that was. The children being ripped from their hands and actually being... This is a horrible period in history. Of course, it's also a foreshadow for what's going to happen when Jesus is born, because we find the same thing happening from the insecurity of Herod. Instead of being secure about his kingdom, he was scared about another person, Jesus, who was going to come and take over the world. In the midst of this, Moses is born. Now the mother panics because she knows what her faith is. And instead of taking the risk of her child being taken away from her, she does the only thing that she can do. She gets the baby, she puts him in a basket, and on the river, a water that's flowing, just down the stream. She puts the basket, and she says, "Good luck!" And she kind of throws it down. She doesn't do that, but I don't know. Like, what would be the last word as a mother? Like, puts him down, hopes for the best. What could she do? What could she do? See, God was already prepared. God was working. See, for us, we don't know what's happening. God already has everything prepared. And in the midst of that, by the way of the water, as the water is flowing downstream, the daughter of the Pharaoh discovers Moses, and she takes him out. She draws him out of the basket. Moses, I drew you out. That's what it means. I drew you out in the Hebrew. Right? She takes him out of the basket. Moses, you guys see the movie. Yeah, everybody knows the story. So she's Moses, and she discovers him. So he's not killed. He doesn't die. Instead, he gets the very opposite kind of circumstances. He grows up in the palace as an Egyptian. Or what a crazy circumstance. So here's the Israelite, Moses. He's an Israelite, but he grows up in the palace of Egypt as an Egyptian. But here's the thing about this. His mother finds out where he is, and she goes to the palace, and she applies for a job as a babysitter. And she ends up babysitting Moses. She raises him. Because, they're palace people, they're bougie. Like, I don't raise kids, So, like, they hire other people to come and, like, do the work. So, of course, they're going to hire the sad Israelite slave, not knowing that that was the mother of Moses. So, as Moses was growing up, his mother, who acted as the babysitter, is instilling these very strong foundations he's going to need later on in life. The basic, like, how to be a good person. Like, you meet somebody like, that's a good person. That was Moses. Because his mother instilled these values in him at a young age. So when he grew up, he didn't forget who he was. Like, when you grow up in certain parts of the place, whatever, you tend to be disconnected from the rest of the world, right? Especially the better off you are. Like, the less issues that you are faced with, and the more comfortable your life is, I'll let you define comfortable in whatever way you want, you become more bougie, right? So you become more like, I don't care about the rest of the world, I don't care about myself, whatever. That's not how Moses really cared about the people around him. He cared about the issues. So he grows up. He grows up in Egypt. He grows up in a palace. One day he's walking by, taking a stroll, and he sees this fellow Egyptian, right? kind of being mean to the Hebrew, to the Israelite. Like, Moses is looking at this like, what are you doing? It's unfair. The guy's beating him. He's just like, it's injustice. He sees injustice, and Moses can't deal with this. So what happens? He gets angry. He gets so angry. He does something wrong, but he gets angry, and he fights off injustice. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. It says the following: for everything there is a season. For everything there is a season. A time to love and a time to hate. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war, a time for peace. I remember the first time I was reading, I was perplexed. Like, I thought we were supposed to be lovey-dovey all the time. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that time to hate. Fine, I hate this guy in the back. You know, like, I hate everybody. No, that's not what it is. But every emotion that we have, do you know God gave it to you for a reason? You understand what I'm saying? Like, every moment, like, we're taught that we're never allowed to be angry. No. Anger is good. There's good anger, there's bad anger. Right? Sometimes anger is the biggest motivation to do good things. There's a time for war. We got to get angry sometimes. You know when you get angry, one of the appropriate time to get angry? How many of us have heard about the churches that are burning in Ethiopia? For no reason. You know how many people are dying right now? Our own brothers said, why are we not angry? See, the problem is, we read about it, we hear about it, we say, oh, that's sad, and we move on. We're not angry. We don't hate it. You see? That's the problem. We heard about the 30 martyrs of the Ethiopian. We just sang about it. Like, when you hear it, you're like, oh no, we post like on Facebook, oh, 30 martyrs, we miss you. And that's about it, because we're not angry. See, if you're truly angry, you stand up against injustice and you fight head on, right? It's your problem. This is our church. Imagine all those people today. This is not history. We're not talking about like thousands of years ago, like in the ancient times. Like I say, it seems like long legends that exist. We're talking about things that are happening today to our brothers. Why are we not angry? Why are we not crying? Why are we not praying? Why are we not asking God to change something about it? Why are we not getting invested in this story? Because we're not angry. It's because we're not angry. Not only that, but even when it comes to sin, the people that are actually able to make a transformation in their life is the people who actually hate the sin they're committing. You have to hate it. Hatred sometimes is a good thing if it stems from something that's positive. Right? Think about a person who's made a career shift successfully. Success, not talks about it. I'm going to change my career. No, I promise. I'm going to do it next year. But somebody who's like, I'm going to completely change my career. Where does it stem from? The fact that they hate their job, right? Like if they really hate their job, like I can't stand here anymore, then that's going to be the biggest motivation for them to get something better. But if they're like okay about it, they're never going to make the change they need to make. The same thing is true with our spiritual life. Same thing is true with the churches that are burning down. You've got to hate the injustice so much that we got to be able to stand up against it. And that's what Moses did. Now, he didn't go about it the right way. Moses went a little too far. He got a little too much hatred in there, right? So you guys know what happens. He sees the guy beating down on the Hebrew, gets so angry. By the way, Moses is like, he's insanely strong. This is not a guy you want to talk trash to. Like, Moses is, like, he's crazy strong, right? Like, we read about him. Like, even his hands are so heavy that people have to hold his hands for him. Like, that's how, like, this guy's huge, right? So, like, he's a strong guy. We're talking about a very strong guy. So, you know, this strong Moses, he sees the Hebrew. You know, in my head, I want to believe he went there to talk to him, but, you know, things turned left. Probably kind of, you know, touched on him a little bit. The guy stumbled and fall. That's what I want to believe. But at the end of the day, guy's dead. That's what we know. All right? Guy's dead. Oopsies. So, like, the guy is like, all right, now it's time to go. Mind you, we're talking about Moses. We're talking about a guy who grew up in the palace. Like, this is a no-no. This is not something like, I could get by it, whatever. get my lawyers to cover it up for me. We're talking about the guy who grew up in the palace, and he's an Egyptian, so he knows that there's a chance for him to get killed. So he does the only thing he could do, he flees. He goes to a different place, different country. Time goes by, he settles down, he gets married, right? Like, life is good. Moses, doing amazing. He's living a life, he has kids, it's amazing. He's like, oh yeah, my name is Moses. Got me some kids. Yeah, I'm Moses. Life is good. And he's chilling. He's having the best time in his life. As he's walking around, one day he sees a burning bush. Now the burning bush is kind of crazy, because it's not just like a burning bush. It's the bush is on fire, but the fire is not consuming the bush. This is crazy. This is insane, right? Of course, it's a foreshadow later on with Virgin Mary for the fact that the divine fire of Jesus didn't consume the womb of the Virgin Mary. So it's a foreshadow for what happens with the Virgin Mary. But at the time, Moses is like, I'm going crazy. Like, I think I drank a little bit too much tala, right? So like, he's like, what is happening? Yo, it's a burning bush. So he's like, he doesn't know what to do. He's like, what should I do? And he's like, Moses. He hears a voice, right? Like, take off your shoes. Because the place you're standing at is holy. Everybody knows this verse. Now, this is also a foreshadow for why we take off the shoes when we come into the church. But this is the most important part that I want you guys to get out of this. God doesn't care about shoes. Neither did he care about Moses' stinky sandals, right? Because we're talking like back in the day. Like God doesn't care about this kind of stuff, right? What he cares about is the symbolism behind the shoes. The shoes symbolizes our heart, right? The shoes, like when we're walking around, we pick up dirt, especially back then. Think about how many dirt, like his sandals were picking up, right? So the shoes symbolizing our heart is saying that when we walk around in this world, our heart is picking up a lot of dirt. Think about the divisions. Think about fighting with our brothers and sisters. Think about the wrong type of hatred that we have against each other. All that mess, you leave it at the door. You leave it at the door. Like when you're taking off your shoes, you take off the shoes of your heart, right? Like all that negativity, all that dirt you've picked up, like all that talking behind people's back and he did this and she did, you leave it at the door. The place you're standing at is holy. See, with dirt on your heart, there's no way to communicate with God clearly. How can you? Like, there's a lot of dirt in there, right? So the eyes of your heart are also unable to see God clearly because you have dirt on it. Remove it. Before you come, leave it at the door. It's not a place for this. This is a place of holiness. So God calls Moses. He takes off his heart shoes as well, not just the sandals. But now he's able to think clearly. So all that negativity he has about Egypt, all that resentment, all that anger, the wrong type of anger he had, he removed all that. And now he's able to talk to God clearly. And as he's talking to God, God says, yeah, I'm going to need you to go back to Egypt. I'm going to need you to go back to Egypt. Think about what God is asking of Moses. Moses, is in danger of being killed if he goes back to Egypt. Right? Like, Moses is married, he's successful, he's living the life, right? And he's being asked to go back to the people of the Israelites, which, by the way, he doesn't have a strong connection with. He didn't grow up next to the Israelites eating their food and talking to them. He grew up in a palace, right? So he really doesn't have that much connection with them anyway. But God is asking him to go back and help the Israelites that's supposedly his people and leave his family and the land that he's worked so hard for. It's very hard not to get connected to the story. I don't know if you guys are understanding, but I feel like God is speaking, for me, I feel like God is speaking to me directly, right? So we're here in America, we live in a life, we're doing well, right? Forgetting that our own brothers and sisters back home are dying of poverty, right? And we want to do everything that we can to not think about them so we have a clear conscience. No, like maybe physically we may not go, but somehow, some way, we have a responsibility to care about the people back home who are dying because they don't have food. It is not an option, it's an obligation as a Christian. They are our people. You see? It's not enough to talk about these stories. Some of us don't even want to hear about how bad our country is doing. We label it as politics. Right? I don't want to talk about politics. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about kids dying. That's not politics. We have got to get involved. It's not enough to look at the people that are dying every single day and simply walk away. They are our people. I don't care how many years you grew up in America. I don't care how many years you lived outside of you. They are your people. You have an obligation to help your brothers and sisters out. That's what Moses understood. And Moses said, you know what? I'll go back. That's what you want me to do, God? I'll go back. Like risking, he's married, he has kids. Like all the things that we will say right now as an excuse not to get affiliated, Moses had it as well. But he said, you know, that's what you want from me? That's what you want? I'll do it. Like, I'll do it. He packs his things, goes down to Egypt. He goes down to Egypt, and then he stands right in front of Pharaoh. Now, it's important to say, like, I feel the Pharaoh. Like, if you think about it, like, so the message that Moses has is, let my people go. Or like, you know, like that's the message. You guys know the song. So like, that's the message. So Moses is supposed to go in front of the Pharaoh and say, hey, God told me to tell you, you got to get the people to leave, right? And the head of Pharaoh, like, I get it. Like, these guys are slaves for so many years. Some random guy with stinky sandals is going to come up to me and tell me, let my people go. No, that's not how it works. I get it. But the way that Pharaoh responds is probably the coldest verse that's written in the Bible. This is like as cold as it gets. He says the following, Exodus chapter 5, verse 2. This is the response the king, the Pharaoh, says to Moses after Moses says, the people got to go. Is that so? Retorted the Pharaoh. Like, you can imagine in your head, like, oh, is that so? You know what I mean? It's not like, is that so? Like, you know, no, is that so? You know what I mean? So then he says, and who is the Lord? Like, who is the Lord? Why should I listen to him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord. And I will not let Israel go. Like, that's so cold. Like, that's such a cold statement. Like, I don't know the Lord. But yet again, if we take a time to kind of think about it, how many of us can truly say we know the Lord? How many of us could really make that claim? True story. Some of you guys heard, past few weeks, yours truly was accepted to this conference in Ethiopia to, you know, do a little training on jazz. I wasn't giving it, I was receiving it, right? But I was excited. I kind of told everybody about it. Hey guys, I'm going to Ethiopia. I'll be gone. Ethiopia. And I'm like, why are you going? I'm being trained on Gitz from Westerners. It's kind of weird. They're from Germany. So I was like interested about this program because I'm like, what can they teach me? Like, what can they provide for me? Like, after all, I know Gitz. Like, I've learned Gitz. I went to the monastery for a year and a half. I worked hard at this. Like, I know Gitz. Come on. So when we went there, it was like half and half. So like half, like literally, like half were from the West, right? So like the Germans, the guys from Italy, and like the Canadians and all that stuff, Australia, and the other halves were like from Bada or Gunda, you know what I mean? It was like your coffee, right? Coffee and milk, like it was half and half. Like, I'm not kidding. I felt like I was in the 50s for a second again. So like, I'm like, all right, first, like, you know, I'm gonna go and mingle with my Westerner friends, right? And then, first question that usually comes up is, so how did you get into this field, right? Like, or how do you know good? Like, that's a common question that we ask each other. So I'm like, well, you know, I went to the monastery for 1.5 years, and I learned Giz. They're like, what? You know, because they're like all French and stuff. So they're like, I'm like, yeah. So they're like, so you know Giz? I'm like, I know Giz, please. I know Giz. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. Then I was like, okay, you know, like, first half is done. Let me mingle with the rest half. So I went to the Ethiopian and said, exactly. After 45 minutes of that, so we started talking, and then the conversation came up, and I was like, yeah, I know Giz. No, I know Giz. I learned connect, you know, connect. I learned it. I know Giz. So later on that day, and like nobody responded to me. Like nobody was like, oh, dear. But I kind of expected something, but nothing. Like nobody said nothing. I was like, all right. Later that night, we were sitting at dinner, and people like started talking, but in Giz. Like, they're holding conversations. And Giz, when I said I knew Giz, I know 27 words. Like, I counted, right? And then the rest, I have to, like, carry my dictionary. That's what I mean by I know Giz. Like, I know how to say, you know, hi, I think, right? So, like there's, like, very few things that I can say with my dictionary. Forget about that. Like, they're holding conversations, right? And I'm dizzy. And then when I was saying, I was like, yes. I'm in, right? And I'm like, oh, like, I don't know Giz. Like, I don't know anything. Like, I don't know Giz at all. Like, I thought I knew it, but I didn't know it. Here I was, because I took 1.5 years of learning Giz, I thought I knew it when I put myself against the people from the West. You see? Like when I stand next to them, yeah, I know a few things. But then I stood next to the people who actually know Giz, and I don't know Giz. And because I don't know Giz, I wasn't able to understand what they were trying to say to me. See, this is what I fear about what we say when we say we know God. You see? We spend a few things here, a few things there, and we grab a few, like, God language, but we don't really understand the language of God. Because we put ourselves against the people that we probably shouldn't know. What would happen if we were to face the people who speak the language of God fluently, like St. Paul's of the world, like St. Peter's of the world, the Desert Fathers, the holy righteous people like Arsimid, the martyrs? If we stood next to the people who speak the language of God fluently, how would we stand? See, the truth of the matter is we don't know God at all. We don't speak the language of God. Like, we learn a few things here and there to make us think that we actually know Him. But we don't know Him at all. See, if we really want to learn, we got to get close to the people who speak the language. Just like any other language, the way you learn is by speaking, right? It's not by like dictionary and stuff like that. It's by speaking. So let's get close to the people who speak fluently. Let's read their books. Let's read the righteous lives of the Desert Fathers. Let's learn how St. Paul lived his life so we can mimic his lifestyle. And then the more we do that, the more we get immersed into the language. And then we can understand God. See how that works? The problem with Pharaoh is he didn't even want to learn. He didn't even want to know. This is such a cold statement by saying, I don't know God, I won't let him go. Such a cold statement. Now here's what happened. Here's what happened. God said, okay, you don't know me. Like, you don't know me. Like me, I'm God. And you don't know me. I'll formally introduce myself to you. Don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about it. Let me introduce by saying, here are the 10 plagues. Right? Like, if you don't want to know who I am, don't worry. I will formally introduce myself to you. And of course, you guys know what the 10 plagues are. The 10 plagues hit off. Pharaoh's still not getting it. Pharaoh is still like, he's not waking up. He's still not understanding how serious of a matter this is. So God says, so far I was being nice. I was playing nice. Now I'm going to be serious. Israel, like, don't mess with my children. Right? Like, Israel is my first child. If you take my first child, I'll take your first child. If you're going to take my kids, I'll show you what I could do. If that's how you want to play. See, the thing is, when we think about it, it seems like, why would God play like this kind of game? But the thing is, God is the absolute justice, right? He's just. He like, true justice means not just forgiving over and over. Justice means when something wrong happens, there has to be some type of result. Right? Like punishment. Like a true justice system, if somebody's a murderer going around killing everybody, you don't let him go and, oh, let's forgive him. You know? Jesus said forgive him. No, that's not justice. Justice says this guy needs to be put away. See? Now God is saying, as just God as he is, I can't let this go. Like, the Israelites have suffered enough for hundreds and hundreds of years. I can't let this go. And I got a plan for these people. What's the plan for God? Why does he care so much about the Israelites? Why are they chosen? Like, well, why choose them? Why be invested so much? Well, not yet. Not yet. There you go. Because it starts from Adam. He made him a promise. Like, I will come and save you, mankind. Right? In order to save mankind, the Israelites have to be secured because it's through the lineage of the Israelites that God is going to... That's why he's invested in this like story. It's not just about the Israelites. It's about even Pharaoh himself. Because later on, when Jesus comes and dies, guess who gets to go into the kingdom of heaven? You see? Even at the end of the day. So he's even trying to help him out, but he's not getting it. So I'm going to make you get it. Like, if you're not understanding, I'm going to make you get it. I'm going to take your first child. No, this is hurts. This hurts. Anybody could imagine what that would feel like. And of course, you guys know the story. They perform the Passover. Jonathan, please. Passover, quickly summarize.
So God sent down the angel of death to Egypt to kill the firstborn of every child, but he told the Israelites to cover their doors with the blood of the lamb that was killed, and that blood would protect them from the angel that wouldn't kill their first children, and that is a reflection of the blood that was shed by Christ.
So, he says, I want you guys to perform the Passover. We call it Fasika. In Hebrew, they call it Pasa, which means to pass over, to cross over to the next part or area or whatever. So the understanding is when they celebrate Passover, it's take a lamb, sacrifice it, eat the meat, take the blood, and paint it over their door. That night, when the angel comes to strike the first child, if he sees that blood on their house, the angel will pass over to the next house. Right? The blood will serve as a sign for them not to be struck and not to be killed. When it came to the Egyptians, they didn't have the blood to protect them. So the angel did not pass over, but he came and he struck down. Every time we celebrate Fasika, we talk about this. Because, like, concepts, especially of Ethiopian Orthodox Order Church, celebrations are destroyed. Like, I'm so sad, especially of things like Maskal, Fasika, Ganna, and this is a good opportunity to say this. These are not the time to go out and club on these days, right? I can't believe how many flyers are let's celebrate Fasika together at this club. Like, what? Now? Like, you want us to know? Like, Fasika is a time for you to pass over into the kingdom of heaven. Even when we get home, like we think about Fasika and all this stuff, the good versions are like, okay, and I'm like, well, that's still not correct. Like, I mean, your family could come over. I have nothing wrong with your family. But it's like, that's not the purpose. And we have like big feasts and all this stuff. But no. Passover, as to say, when they were told to celebrate Passover, eat the meat and drink the blood. What do you think he's talking about as a foreshadow? His flesh and his blood. That is the flesh we have to eat. That is the blood we have to drink. That blood of Jesus Christ will serve as a sign. So when Judgment Day comes, the angel will let us pass over into the kingdom of heaven. That is a true celebration of Fasika that was instituted here thousands of years ago. We missed the point. We missed it, like the whole purpose of the celebrations. Most of us skip out on it. We pass over the church service. That's what we pass over. Right? We have to understand not to forget the meaning of what Christ was talking about when he said Passover, Fasika, right? So think about these things. Ganna is coming up. We do the same thing with Ganna. We celebrate in other places, but we forget about the part that matters the most. And here's the thing. So they do that for when it comes to the Pharaoh. He goes crazy. Pharaoh can't stand it. He's like, you know what? Get out of my land. Get out of Egypt. Like, leave. And Moses says, don't worry, Israelites. We have a promised land. Like, I got you. God promised us a land. That's where we're headed. And the Israelites are like, shalom, shalom. And then they get their stuff and they start heading up there. But God is like, you know what? No. There's a shortcut, like, that goes directly to the promised land. But he's like, no. We're going to take a roundabout. We're gonna take a detour. Which, like, doesn't make sense. Like, they have people chasing them. People are behind them. And instead of God saying, I'm going to put you right away into the promised land, he's like, I'm going to take you on a detour. It doesn't make any sense at all. No sense. And that detour leads them into the wilderness. The detour gets them into a whole bunch of mess. Why would God do this? Sometimes when we want something, we don't understand why we don't get it right away. But if we trust God, he has a purpose for everything. True story. Back in undergrad, my major had like a lot of like difficult courses. Now here's the thing. I'm not the smartest from the bunch. Like, you guys probably know that by now. Like, I'm not the smartest, but I work hard. And I boast about that. I work my behind off. I was at the library, like, day and night. Like, she knows in the back. Like, I worked hard. That's what I did. I wasn't smart, but I worked hard. And because I worked hard, I had pretty good grades. Yes, I did. Thank you very much. Now, here's what happened. Whenever, like, those of you guys who've been to college, whatever, you always hear about the courses. You know, like organic chemistry and the physics and stuff. Like, even before you come in, right? Like, people are, organic chemistry. And then like, oh, we're going to die. So you prepare yourself for that semester, right? You tell your parents, oh, this year's the year. This year's the year. Like, you know? So you get prepared because there are classes that like scare you and you know you're going to have a difficult time. Now, I did engineering. So for engineering classes, like we had those classes that were scary, whatever. But that one particular semester, my junior year, and I didn't have one of those crazy classes at all. In fact, like, one of the classes I was taking was considered one of the easier ones. So don't worry about that. Like, you never hear easy A. You heard about it? Easy. That particular semester, I wasn't focused. When I started off the semester, I was just like, my head was everywhere, whatever. To give you an idea, I'm not boasting. I usually get 10% over the class average. Like usually, like, you know, I'm not boasting, but hey, it's fine. So I'm like, all right, let's get to the class, whatever. I got this easy A. And then it was one of those classes, 2 exams and a final. Like that was it, like no projects or anything like that. So the first class, or the first exam, I sat in, I think class average was like a 70 or something like that. And I got my grade, I got a 60 something. Like, I couldn't believe it. I got something, I did that? Like below the class average? No, like, cause this is like the easy A, right? Like this is like, come on, like what's happening? And I knew I couldn't mess around no more. Cause like I needed this class. This class was crucial because it was like a prerequisite. Like for engineers, we have a senior design project that you can't really break it up. If you can't take that, that means you have to stay another year. I knew that. So like I had to work hard for the second exam. So I put everything to the side. I focused on this class. I studied hard. I'm talking about like I studied. Like study. When I study, I study. Like I don't play around. I go to the professor, I'm that guy. Like, hi, professor, hi, right? Like, I'm that guy, all right? So I was in, like, his, like, what is it called? Study hours, whatever, it's been that long.
Office hours.
It's been that long. Woo, time is flying. So we went and, like, whatever, we reviewed everything, and I'm like, I'm ready. Like, I actually studied. And then he first announced his class average, it was in the 80s. I'm like, I killed it. 100. Got 100. I get it, I got a 58%. Never forget that. 58%. 2 drops just fell down. Like, it was fast though. It was like fast. I was like, what happened? What happened? I tried and I failed. That sucks. Like, if you don't try and you fail, you're like, oh man, I gotta focus, like, what's wrong with me, whatever. But trying and failing, like, that's, like, horrible. Like, and then the thing is, like, I don't mind if I failed on the thermodynamics. I failed on the easy A class. Like, this is that, like, oh, I took this class because my GPA was going down. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those. Like, I failed. Like, what was gonna happen? What was I gonna say to my parents? Long story short, because of that class, I couldn't graduate the year after. I had to stay another year at college. I couldn't believe it. I remember that semester was horrible. Like I had to go. I had to make that call, Mom. It's not gonna happen. Imagine, right? It was in that extra year that I started teaching the way that I started teaching. Those of you guys who've seen the YouTube's own, Avi's own videos, whatever, that was the year that I started posting that. It was the year that I knew clearly, more than ever, that I was destined to be teaching the Word of God. It was that year that I knew what my goal in life was. It was that year that I grew up to the person that I am today. That year was so foundational to me. If I didn't have it, I don't know where I would have been. Maybe I would have chased the rest of the world and done the other things that I would have done. At that time, I couldn't see it. But God said, hey, you're not ready. You got to go into the wilderness. And if you know, my school is literally in the wilderness. But sometimes, like, you want something, and you want it bad, and you want it now, and God says no. He's saying, hey, you got to go through the wilderness first. You're not ready. You're not ready. If I give it to you, you're just going to crash it. Like, take your time. Like, trust God. I'm not saying don't try. I'm not saying, like, I'm in the wilderness, I can't do anything. I can't do it. No. Like, put full energy into it. But when you don't get it, there's a reason for that. And accept God's answer. And we always used to talk about this back in the day. God always gives you 3 answers. Yes, no, or not yet. So understand, when he's saying not yet, it's because he's grooming you for something even better. Because for the Israelites, it was in the wilderness they got the 10 Commandments. It was in the wilderness where their foundation of service was plotted. It was in the wilderness where their relationship with God was solidified. If they didn't go through that wilderness, the Israelites wouldn't have been the Israelites as we know them today. They just weren't ready for the promised land. But keep in mind, that land is already promised. Nobody was going to take it. It's theirs. They just weren't ready for it. Of course, I gotta go fast here. You guys know the story. They crossed the Red Sea. I mean, like, it's kind of a big deal, but like, you know, it happens. And like, I don't know what to say. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, like, please read your Bible. But more importantly, the Bible Museum. Like, you guys ever been there? Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I think like 3rd or 4th floor, whatever it is, they have like an Old Testament, and like you get to walk through the Red Sea, but it's blue, so I'm like, but so you walk through. It's amazing. It's amazing. You do it. Unfortunately, it's not free anymore. When we went as a group, it was free. It's not free. No, you gotta pay. I found out the very hard way. Very hard way. I already been like I've been there like 4 or 5 times, and I'll go in a heartbeat if you guys pay for me. But if you don't, but like so go check it out. It's amazing. So if you don't know what the party in the Red Sea is, you're in trouble. But you can see it. That's the museum. That's the thing. And so they crossed the Red Sea, but the Israelites like. Sometimes, like I told you, when I read the Bible, I try to get into the mindset of the characters, but sometimes I try to get into the mindset of God. So like, the Israelites, like God is like, okay, check this out, right? This is like, look what I'm about to do. Look what I'm about to do. Look what I'm about to do. Whoosh! See? And then like, the Red Sea parts, and then they walk through it. Like, tell me that wasn't amazing. That was amazing, right? Yeah. It just happened. I know, it just happened. And then they're like, we're hungry. And then the Israelites, they're very hard to impress. Like, very hard to impress. And God is like, are you kidding me? Like, just like, did you see? Like, the sea went like that. And it's like, okay, we're hungry. And then God is like, okay, check this out. Check what I'm about to do. Whoosh. And the manna, like, food, sweet food. It's like very good, like, the food of the angels, as they say, comes down and they're able to eat. And they're like, what now? Like, what do you want? Like, this is very dry. I need a drink. And now, I need it now. I need it. It's like, are you kidding me? Okay, check this out. Calls Moses over. Moses comes. There's a rock. And he strikes the rock and the water flows out. He's like, you saw that? I did it. Did you see what happened? That was pretty cool, right? No, we want to go back. Like, some of them are crazy. They're like insane. Like, what do you want from me? Like, sometimes I think like God is watching the Israelites like, are you guys crazy? But also, in the story of the Israelites is ourselves, right? So God gives us things over and over and over, yet we demand, God, you haven't done enough. Like, are you kidding me? Like, if you take time to really evaluate yourself, like, your life in itself is a miracle. Think about all the things that you've transitioned over. Think about all the things He's protected you over. Think about all the blessings He's given you. But you choose to concentrate on the negative instead of all the positive things that He's given you. See? Some of the Israelites had slave mentality. Right? You guys heard of Harriet Tubman, who said, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more only if they knew they were slaves. Right? It was that mentality of the people who still wanted to go back to Egypt and be slaves. Because the desert is a wilderness. So like, oh, the sun, the heat, oh, we don't have food. And some of us complain when God is trying to do so much for us, but we continue to complain. Despite all this, God establishes covenant. Those of you guys who took the 10 Commandments with me, what does the word covenant mean? Agreement. Perfect. I'll take agreement. It's an agreement. It's an understanding between God and man. Covenant in general means two parties, but 10 Commandments is an agreement between God and man. It's an if statement. It's a conditional statement, meaning if the Israelites are able to follow the 10 Commandments, then God will protect them. It's an if-then statement. Do you see what I'm saying? If the Israelites are able to follow the 10 Commandments, then God will protect them. That's how it works. That's what a covenant is. At the end of this covenant, they sacrifice an animal, usually a sheep or a bull. They sacrifice the middle. The reason why they're saying this is, if any one of us break this covenant, may we also undergo the same fate as this animal. May we be killed in half. That's what it's saying. That's what the ritual of sacrificing the animal of the Ten Commandments is. Do the Israelites follow the Ten Commandments? So who's supposed to be killed? Who's supposed to be killed? The Israelites, mankind, right? But who ends up dying on the cross? That's why we call him the sheep, the true sheep, right? Because he endures the fate of the animal. That's why we call him the true sheep, the true lamb, right? That's what we call him, right? Because he was able to be sacrificed, even though the Israelites never able to die. And of course, you guys know how that works. How am I doing on time? I'll try to wrap it up fast. I didn't write it here because I don't want to get into it. The Israelites, they're not getting it. Like, something is wrong, right? Something is not clicking. Some guy comes up and blames Moses, like Moses doing everything wrong, and they rebel against him, and they want to take him down. Like Moses, like, are y'all kidding me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Hatred. Like, these guys were hating on him just for no reason. He was like with God, he's doing the right thing, he's trying to save them, but yet people hate on him. Here's the thing that I want you guys to take from this story. If you are doing something really, really good, you will encounter haters. In fact, one of the best measures of knowing that you're walking with God is when somebody says something negative about you that you don't deserve. Now, here's the thing. If you're doing something wrong, and somebody says something negative, that's not from God. Like, you got it. But if you're doing something that is correct, and you're calling it service, and you're calling it with God, and you're walking with God, and you hear something negative, you could reassure yourself you're doing something right because you angered the devil. You think the devil is going to let you go as you're doing something positive? Case in point, YLTC. The guys who are in the YouTube, whatever, like post, as your assignment, go and read the comments. No, I'm saying, like, that's a homework assignment. Read the comments. Like, you guys are here, and you guys are witnessing what kind of services that we get, right? But some people will see something else on the computer. I don't know. I don't get it. But like, there's something negative that's being posted. I swear on my life. I'm not even kidding. I go there and read the comments on the days that I'm angry or whatever, because it makes me truly happy. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I go and then I seek out the negative. I'm like, yes, because I know we're doing something positive. Like I know. Like, you look at it. Like, how many people are learning the Word of God? Like, we haven't done anything wrong. Like, I know in that, right? And then it's not on me. That's like what we've been able to build together, right? So when you're doing something right, you're bound to get negative comments. If you're getting negative comments, that means you're doing something right because you were angry with the devil. 100%. Now, all this stuff happens. And by the way, like, little trivia that you might be interested in. From Exodus, let's say, 20, right, to all the way Numbers chapter 10-ish, spans about 2 years. We're talking about Exodus 20, I think. Like, how many chapters are in Exodus? Like 33, 34. Then you have the whole Leviticus, which nobody reads. And then you have Numbers, right? And then like the first 10 chapters. That spans about 2 years. Like, it's a good chunk. From Numbers chapter 10 till like the end of Numbers is 38 years. So a majority of the time is spent in the 2 years is spent in Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, getting the Ten Commandments, establishing the thing, like the whole Leviticus and all this stuff. Like all that, the census and like all these things happen at the mountain as he's receiving the Ten Commandments and while waiting for all that stuff to have the golden calf. And you guys know this stuff. That takes about 2 years. But after that, the wandering around is 30 years that happened afterwards. So now they get off the mountain. So they go into the mountain, they establish the covenant, they know how they're supposed to pray. They're like, so now the Jewish system as we know it is established. They know like how to go, which door to go, and all this stuff. That's been established on Mount Sinai as they receive the Ten Commandments. They get off from the Mount Sinai, and they're like, okay, promised land. You've been promised the land, we're going to go claim it. But before we go there, let's just make sure everything is good. And then they send off 12 spies. 12 spies. 12 spies go into the promised land, they come back. 10 of them report falsely that in the promised land there are giants. Like, there is no way we're going to be able to, like, take over these people. There's no way. Like, we're going to be destroyed. 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, say, no, that's not true. We can take over. God is with us. We could take over the land. Like, this is not a big deal. The Israelites decide to hear the 10 people over the 2. Right? They follow the majority. God hears this, and now, like, he can't do it. Right? Remember, the covenant, if you follow me, if you trust me, then I'll protect you. They're not trusting you. They're not trusting him. So he says, you know what? You will not go into the promised land. Your children will, but you will not. You will not. So because of that decision of not trusting God, their promised land is not given to them. Basis of the false reports. Look, certain things in your life, I promise you, is promised to you. I promise you, it's promised to you. Right? You see? It's yours. It's yours. God already has given to you. All you got to do is claim it. But some of you will never get possession of your promised things because you're hearing the false reports of other people. See? God already gave it to you. Like, here. Like, it's yours. Claim it. But on your way to get there, somebody's going to come to you and say, stop it. That's not yours. And give you a false narrative. False story. And because you're willing to hear the voice of people, false narratives over God's, you will never get the promise that you've been given. It's your promise. It's yours. Claim it. Don't be afraid of the giants that are not there. Some of us feel inside that we're destined for something bigger. Some of us feel like we're destined to do big things, but we have fear inside of us. But surely not. Clearly not. We start to build giants that don't exist. And those scare us, and we're never able to obtain the promises that we've been given, and that was the fault of the Israelites. Because of that, they end up wandering the desert for 40 years. They died in the desert. But a new generation comes, and that is the generation that takes over the promised land. As far as Moses. So, what happens with him is, one day he's chilling. And people complain again. We want water now. And it's like, God is like, all right, like, let's calm down, guys. And then he calls Moses, I want you to go to the rock, and I want you to talk to the rock, and from the rock, water is going to, like, magically come. He's like, Moses, like, I got you. Like, people of Israel. So he gets his staff, he's like, look at the water from the rock. Bam! And he strikes it once. Bam! He strikes it twice. And the water flows out. What were the instructions? Speak to the rock. Here's the thing. Because of that, he doesn't enter into the promised land. Because of that. I remember the first time I learned about this, and I'm like, God, like, jeez. Like, it probably slipped out of his hand. Like, I don't want to imagine Moses doing anything wrong, right? Like, so I'm thinking, like, look at the rock, oopsies. No, but look at the rock, oopsies, I did it again, you know? Like, I always feel like, I feel like that's how it went down. But God is like, no. Like, no. You're not getting into the kingdom of heaven. Why be that harsh on Moses? Here's the thing. You've got to see the irony. You got to see the irony. of Moses, who is saved originally, who's not even supposed to be alive, from a water that's flowing downstream that God had organized for him, and water was supposed to be his friend. See? Like he was supposed to die in that water. But now the water is the reason why he doesn't get into the promised land. See? God had already prepared everything for him. And him and the relationship of water, he knows that God got his back. He got his back. See, for Moses, great things are expected. We're talking about Moses. He's seen the glory of God. He's seen what he could do. Ah, the shame, the irony. See, this is the thing. When it comes to us, every year, God expects greater things from us. Like, for Moses, he was great, so God expected great things. When we come into the church, like the first year, we may not be reading our Bible regularly. That's fine. Like, you're at church. Like, I only read my Bible twice this year. You read it twice, that's amazing. Right? It's great. Like, amazing. The second year, I only read my Bible 10 times. That's unacceptable. Because now, like, greater things are expected. When you come into the church, you might be fasting like one day out of the year, right? Like God's on day. There's that one day on. Like I do that one, right? So like that's great, amazing, like great, like that's great. But the second, third year, if you're still there, that's unacceptable. Like greater things are expected from you. Like when you first come, you pray and you forget to pray from time to time. It happens, right? Like it's okay. Not when you keep growing in the service. God expects bigger things from you, right? So for Moses, great things were expected. Like, if Aaron did that, Aaron got away with building a false god, the golden calf, right? Like, Aaron would engineer the other people to worship in a different god. God was like, it's okay, Aaron, I get it. But for Moses, no, that's not okay. Great things are expected. But he still loves Moses. He still loves him. So he showed him the promised land. He was like, that's the promised land that everybody's going to go. But he doesn't get to go there. He sees it and he's about to die. Now, before he dies, he does a few things. Number one, there's a new generation, like I said, that rises. Now, this generation grows up in the wilderness. They have no clue about the parting of the sea. They have no clue about Abraham or whatever. So Moses writes them the book of Deuteronomy. That's what Deuteronomy is all about. It's the second canon. If you guys read this Deuteronomy, it summarizes what happened from the time of Adam all the way to them crossing the sea and all that stuff, right? So Moses summarizes it for the new generation. He sets them up so they're able to take the promised land. Before he dies, Moses also institutes this man by the name of Joshua, who was one of the 12 spies, to take over, because now they are at the place where they're going to take over the promised land that God has given them. And that's where we're going to pick up next week of what Joshua does and how he goes about taking over the promised land. Let's about to Yeah, question. I'm so happy to be done.
So you said that like Isaac, his name was changed to Israel. God named him Israel, right? I've heard the church was like a word, Bene'ed. Do you know what that means? Because I know it's Israel is Israel.
Okay. Don't answer me questions like that in public. Text it to me. People are like, oh, he doesn't know Bene'ed. Like, you know what I mean? Like.
Is Moses' wife actually Ethiopian, or is it?
That's what our fathers say. Our fathers say she was Ethiopian.
Do other historians believe that?
I haven't read too much into it, but our fathers say that she was Ethiopian.
But when they say Ethiopian, they mean like Ethiopian, or like sub-Saharan Africa?
Don't ask me questions like that.
And then one more.
Oh my gosh.
What is Opsis?
Whoopsies! Whoopsies!
No?
Like, I'm not familiar with this Greek word. That's how you spell oopsie, and then I had to, oops, and then I had to put oops. Oopsies, that's not working. Other questions? Other questions? No questions? Question 1? Question 2? No? No question in the back?
Oh, I'm distracted.
Then I saw
Wait, is that, are you,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I could probably answer
My
this
question
about
was, you know, when you were talking about entering the church and leaving all the dirt behind?
Yes.
But you know how it also says, like, come as you are? So how do we...
You know, come as you are is a very, like, misunderstood concept, right? So come as you are doesn't mean, like, don't be ready to change, right? So, for example, if you are coming into the hospital, come as you are means we understand you're sick, that's why the hospital is open. Like, you understand what I'm saying? But when you come into the hospital, you've got to have the mindset of, like, even, like, for example, we're talking about mental illness or something like that. If you're not willing to be treated, they can't treat you. You see what I'm saying? And if you're there to argue with the doctor, like, why are you there? You got to change that mindset. Almost there, right? Yeah. So come as you are means come with your sins, come with, like, your weaknesses, but if you have this mindset of, I'm not going to change, I'm not going to forgive my brother, I'm not going to forgive my sister, I'm not going to change anything about myself, that's the wrong mindset to come into the church with. Having said that, yes, at the end of the day, everybody should come into the church, but that's just not the way to be effective. You know what I mean?
So when you're, like, when you're taking off your shoes, you're...
And that's mainly talking about with each other, right? So, you know, the cross is a relationship. You guys know how it works. Like vertical, our relationship with God. Horizontal, relationship with each other. Most of us come into the church to work with the relationship with God. But that is not a cross. Vertical, like, plank is not a cross. You also need the horizontal. So taking off the shoes deals with the horizontal more than the vertical, right? So get, like, if you want a true relationship with Christ, the cross, you got to make sure that your relationship with God is as strong as your relationship with people all across, right? So that's how it works. Other questions?
Where did it say come as you are? Does that say in the Bible?
It's a concept. I don't think it's a verse, but I'll stand corrected. But that is a concept that, you know, that is kind of, that's a very good question. Huh? By Christians, just in general. Yeah. But I don't think there's a verse that says come as you are. No. We good? Look out. Are you sure?